All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We may have a few more people who will join us, and that's fine. And just want to make sure that you're muting yourself so that we can have a quality experience. And if you have any questions, we will have a formal Q&A at the very end. I also welcome you to put your questions in the chat for me. But I do want to welcome you to our Financially Fit and learning about the ins and outs of student loans today. My name is Tequila Barnes Hall. I am the regional representative for College Foundation of North Carolina. All right, so let's talk about financial literacy. So, what are you guys thinking when you hear the term financial literacy? So, I just know that that's a big concept, it's a big term. So, as we talk about financial literacy, basically it's the skills and knowledge that helps you to make informed decisions about your money or about your finances. And so, that's going to be a really important thing to be considering as we talk about financial wellness today. So this includes things like how to budget your money. And when we talk about setting a budget and establishing a budget for how you're going to use the money that you have, that's something that can change over time. So it's not one budget that you set up forever and you never look at it again. It is something that you are constantly reviewing. You may have to tweak it. Things change from time to time. You may have to increase things in your budget. Maybe you have to decrease some things. So I just want you to think about that. Learning how to properly save, spend, earn, and to give. So when we talk about financial literacy or financial wellness, those are some of the things that we're talking about. So I just want to give you some financial literacy statistics. So there was a survey that was done on financial wellness a few years ago, and we found that 70% of college students report they're not prepared to deal with financial challenges of life or in the real world, and they wish they had more help with making financial decisions. And so, that was something huge, and so I feel like that's not something just with college students, but even younger adults who are preparing for the future. Just thinking about how you're going to manage your finances can be something that can be a little scary sometimes. So, the top five stressors for currently enrolled college students are these. So, the responsibility for repaying loans, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So hopefully we can alleviate some of the stress that might come with that. The cost of a college education, the need to borrow money for college, the demand to actually find a job after you finish your formal education, and just the academic challenges. So maybe the course load that you have. So those are the top five stressors that we found for students who are now currently enrolled. So let's keep going a little bit further. So, how can you become financially healthy? That's a great question. So, definitely want to make sure you're organized. Organization can definitely help with that. Many of us underestimate how much we need to spend or how much we're going to spend. So, like I said, each time that you're spending money each month, you need to go back and look at what you had said that you're going to spend money on and what you actually spent money on and see where you need to make adjustments. Tracking spending helps us to avoid surprises. And so I don't know about you, but I'm constantly looking, at my mobile bank app to see what have I spent? What did I spend this week? What did I spend last week? Sometimes I'm looking to see what I spent for the whole month. And sometimes I find that I spent more money eating out. I'm going to be honest, spent more money eating out than I had anticipated. So it is something that you're constantly tweaking and working on. Make sure you're being informed. Know about fees, credit reports. Check your credit report annually. Interest rates, know about interest rates, and definitely making sure that you're planning for the future now. So those are some things to help you become more, financially fit and, of course, financially healthy. Now, budgeting, we've talked about that word several times already, and it really adds up. So basically, when I'm talking to you about a budget, we're talking about a spending plan. So that's based upon your expenses and your income. So what do you plan to spend, and how are you going to get the money that you're going to be spending? And I'm kind of old school when it comes down to budgeting. I need to write it down. I need to see it, and because it's not real to me until I see it. Now, writing it down or having something written means a lot of different things. I don't necessarily mean that it always has to be on a piece of paper where you've written everything down. But I know there are a lot of apps and things that are more electronic now. And you might want to do it that way. So if there's an app that will do the same thing, you don't have to actually have something on a piece of paper. But if you found an app that works for you, or if you want to just jot things down on your mobile device or your tablet, whatever works for you, But for me, in order for a budget to really work for you as a student or for anybody who is trying to create a budget, it needs to be something that you can see, so that is real and you can actually see what's working, what's not working, where you need to make adjustments. So basically, a spending plan helps you to minimize unnecessary debt. So let's keep going. Now, this is one of my favorite slides. We talk about needs versus wants, and that's a big thing. So, what are the things that you actually need? So, needs are things that you need in order to live. You absolutely have to have. And then we talk about wants. So, wants, you don't really have to have. It's not necessary, but you want it. You really want to have it. It's something that you would like to possess or take, part in. So, let's go back to needs. And what needs, when we're talking about things you need in order to live, or you must have in order to live or survive, that would be your shelter. So, your house, your apartment, whatever shelter that is, food. You have to eat in order to survive. Clothing. Now, clothing, you need to have that. But you have to think about when we talk about clothing, what does that mean? Does that mean that you have to have the most expensive attire that's out there? Not necessarily, right? But you just need to be clothed. You want to have something where you feel comfortable, and look nice, and presentable. And then, of course, water. You need to have water in order to function or survive. Now, wants, remember, wants are not something you have to have. It's not a must. But when I think about wants, maybe some of them are luxuries or things that you desire. So, cell phone. So, a cell phone, even if it's a want and something that you would like to have, when you think about a cell phone, does it have to be the latest one out there? Does it have to be the iPhone 12? Or can it be one that's, still nice, but it's maybe not the iPhone 12 or whatever the newest iPhone or Samsung or whatever is out there? Name brand clothes. Do you have to have, the latest labels that are out there? Shoes, car accessories, music, video games, Starbucks. Do you need to go to Starbucks, 3 or 4 times a week? And of course, you're thinking about your vehicle, mode of transportation. So, there can be a fine line sometimes between needs and wants. I know sometimes when I start thinking about things at home, you would like to have maybe cable, or you would like to have, um, you know, Netflix, or you would like to have Hulu, or you would like to have, what are some of the other ones? Amazon Prime. So these are things that you don't need, but they make it comfortable, make you, they're entertainment for you. So, what are wants? What are needs? Sometimes there's a gray area. Now, internet for me, that's a need. I have to have it. I have to be able to have it to work. If you're a student, of course, you need to have it in order to be able to do your schoolwork. So some things are needs, some things are wants. Sometimes it's a need, but it's also a want. So I like to stream, so I don't worry about Spectrum internet, Spectrum cable, but I do like Spectrum for being able to stream things. So that allows me to have something that's a luxury item, but it's also something I need in order to be able to work. So I need my Spectrum internet. So let's keep going here. Now, budgeting. Now it's a big concept, but budgeting 101. So let's talk about the steps if you want to be financially fit. So step 1, identify your total income. So we need to identify our total income. Where does your money come from? So where are you getting the money that you plan to spend? Where is that coming from? Step 2, identify expenses. So where does your money go? So now that you know where your money is coming from, where is that money going to go? How are you going to budget? How are you going to budget those funds? Now, remember, there are different types of expenses that are out there. There are fixed expenses. And when we talk about fixed expenses, those are items that, are consistent. So each day, each week, each month. So they don't change. So that's your car payment. Your car payment is going to be the same amount each month. Your cell phone bill, pretty much the same. So just to give you some examples. Now, when we hear the term variable expenses, so those are expenses that change depending on your consumption of that good or that service. So things that are variable. You heard me talk about eating out. I do love to eat out. Chick-fil-A is one of my favorite places to go right now. So, if I just take myself, pretty reasonable. But if I take myself and I take somebody else, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. So shopping for your clothes, that can change. So that might be something that you do each month. Maybe it's something that you don't do each month. Groceries change. So, as I'm going out, to the market, there are some weeks I shop weekly. because I have a family, so I shop every week, but you may not shop that frequently. So for that, sometimes I need milk. Sometimes I don't need milk. Sometimes I need to get eggs. Sometimes I don't need to get eggs. So those are some things that, can change. Sometimes my grocery bill is a lot less, and sometimes it's just a little bit more. So, that can change. Now, periodic expenses, we're talking about things like, your haircut, maybe, music, maybe cosmetic things. These are expenses that occur on an irregular basis. So they're periodic. They don't always happen, every day, every week, every month. So one of my favorite things that I like to buy, I'll just use myself as an example. My makeup line that I love is MAC Cosmetics. Love it. And so, I have to make myself up, especially if I'm on a Zoom meeting like this. I want to look presentable. And I don't need to buy that every week. I don't need to buy it every day. I don't need to buy it every month. But probably every other month or, every 2 or 3 months, I may have to replace or replenish that. So it's not something that I have to worry about, putting in my budget, each month. So it's an occasional expense. So now let's talk about step 3, cash flow. So subtract expenses from your income. So of course, depending on what you've done, you can have a positive cash flow or you can have a negative cash flow. So when we're talking about positive cash flow, you're saving money. So that means that you have the money that you've earned or your income, whatever that income is. And when you subtract all the things that you spent, you have money left over. So you can put that money aside in your savings account. And then, of course, we look at negative cash flow. That means you're losing money. So, you're spending more than you had anticipated, or you don't really have anything to save. So always make sure when we think about budgeting and being financially fit, financially healthy, always make sure that you pay yourself first. Okay. Well, let me just talk about that. I know that is not something that we automatically think to do because most people, when they think about, I've gotten money, here's my income that I have for the week or the month or whatever. And the first thing I need to do is go and pay my bills. Or the first thing I want to do is go do something fun. I want to go eat out. I want to go to the movies, But you need to make sure you always pay yourself first. So what does that mean? So that means funds, you're transferring to your savings account, your money market account. You maybe have something in a CD. You're doing payroll deduction, for things. You might use the envelope method. And I kind of smile about that. I don't know who is still doing that, but years ago, back in the day, people used to put money, in an envelope. They bury it in the ground. They put it under their mattress or whatever. But, make sure you pay yourself first. You're setting aside money that, you can use for the future that's not necessarily going towards your bills. And then you have your other money that you're using to pay for the expenses that you need. So that takes planning. That takes budgeting. Always make sure that you're trying to be in a positive cash flow. That means you're saving money. Now, I know people have mixed feelings about credit cards. They can be good or they can be bad. So when we think about credit cards, they're convenient. They provide protection. You can use it for emergencies. They are good because they have an opportunity or they provide an opportunity for you to build credit. So sometimes we don't have that much credit, just depending on where we are and whatever stage of life. They can allow you to get things, quicker. So I have mixed feelings about quick gratification. So sometimes I think that we might need to just wait until we have the funds in our account. But if you need something or want something right away, it does provide for that. Sometimes you get special offers or rewards. I know for one of my credit cards, if I have so many points, I can turn those points into gift cards or experiences or whatever. So there's some good things for it. Now on my screen, I will provide you with the recording for this webinar. So providing some just really good resources for you to learn more about credit cards and how those things work. So you'll see those things on my screen here, and I invite you to take a look at those later on. Now let's talk about credit cards. Credit cards can be bad, just depending on how you use it. I mean, of course, you have interest, and more interest. So when you get your credit card statement, it will tell you, okay, you spent X amount for the month, and then it's going to tell you exactly how much interest you're paying. And you're like, oh my gosh, so you're paying back what you spent with interest. And there's interest that accumulates on it. And sometimes they allow you to have some bad habits because remember, we talked about, sometimes people want to use it for quick gratification. And that can be bad sometimes. Sometimes we're overspending, and credit cards can allow you to get more in debt. So just be very careful about that. And then I put something to the side. Sometimes, credit cards, it could be that, there's identity theft. So there's some times where I have gotten messages to say that my credit card has been compromised, and I need to get a new card. So you just have to be very careful about credit cards. Now, if you are going to take advantage of a credit card, I encourage you to use credit cards responsibly. So that means, pay out the balance each month. That's a really good practice. If you can't pay the balance, pay more than the minimum, because they'll tell you what the minimum is. Try to pay more than that. So it will reduce your balance much faster. Make sure you're paying on time, because if you're paying on time, that's really good. If you don't, then of course, it could be a late fee. And so that's never fun. You're paying whatever you need to pay, then you have that late fee. And remember, every 30 days, your credit card company is reported to, the three different credit bureaus. So you want to make sure that you're, making your payments on time, and you're paying, what you need to pay, because that, then reporting to the credit bureau, that's going to help you in the future as far as when you want to receive other offers and things of that nature. And so you want to make sure your credit is always in a positive light. Stay below your credit card limit. Try to keep the balance at 30%. And simply do not spend more than you can pay back. So be careful. Credit cards can be good. They can be bad. So we want to make sure that we continue to allow credit cards to be good. Now I'm going to kind of switch lanes, and I promise to talk to you about the ins and outs of student loans. So I like to call it student loan basics. So you may have taken out loans already, or perhaps, after you leave your school here, you're going to transfer to another school, and you might have to take advantage of loans there. So I'm just going to talk to you about all different types of loans that are available and how to be responsible with repaying student loans. So student loan basics, loans have to be repaid. So which is why borrowing only what you need is recommended. So borrow responsibly. And so you're going to hear me talk about that quite often. You might hear the term interest and capitalization of interest. So that's what you are charged for using someone else's money. And we talked about that just a few moments ago when we're talking about, credit cards and things of that nature. So types of federal student loans. So when you start thinking about, paying for college, and if you're thinking about loans, or if you already have loans, you have heard the term for direct loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. So let me just kind of break it down, what the differences are between subsidized and unsubsidized. So these are both loans where you don't have a cosigner, there's no surety, there's no credit checks. The first one is the subsidized, direct loan. So that is a need-based loan in which the federal government pays the interest while you're in school and during your grace period. So you do have to make sure you're enrolled at least half time. So want to make sure you're aware of that. And then, of course, there is a master promissory note that you'll need to sign. So this is an agreement to say that you are responsible for repaying the loan under the terms of the agreement. We also have what we call the unsubsidized direct loan. So it's not based on need. So interest is accumulating or accruing right away. Again, like I mentioned to you before, no cosigner for either one of these loans. So there's no credit check. And then, of course, master promissory note does need to be completed. So I will tell you that with the unsubsidized loan, you can choose to make interest payments as they're accumulating, or you can capitalize on the interest. So that means all the interest you haven't been paying for all 2 years or 4 years is going to be added onto your principal loan amount once you go into repayment. Okay. So just because you make one payment, once you're, while you're still in school, doesn't require that you have to make the payments continuously, but you do have that option. Now, for loans that are direct or, direct subsidized or direct unsubsidized, for either loan, you have 10 years to repay these loans. There are no prepayment penalties. So if you want to pay it off, you can always pay it off early. So you have a 6-month grace period from the time that you graduate, or if you separate from the institution before you actually go into repayment. So keep in mind, when we talk about that you have to be enrolled at least part-time. Now, as we talk about types of federal loans, there are also PLUS loans, parent loans for undergraduate students. So like we talked about loans before, the subsidized and unsubsidized, that was your debt as a student. But if you hear PLUS, those are loans that students are benefiting from, but they are the debt of the parent or whoever that borrower is. So the parent borrower is responsible. So there are credit checks for these loans. So it is based upon credit worthiness. And so it's also not based upon need. So that means interest is accumulating or accruing right away. And there's also the MPN, the master promissory note. And so even though you as a student are benefiting, you're not co-signing for a parent. Just want to make sure that you're aware of that. So let's keep going. There is also information for graduate or professional loans. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. And so it's not based upon need. Of course, you still need to complete the FAFSA or the free application for federal student aid. So of course, if you're planning to go to graduate school in the future, of course, this would be your debt. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. As we talk about loans, they have to repay no matter what. Doesn't matter if you're satisfied with your education or not. Doesn't matter if you graduate or not. Doesn't matter if you ever work in the profession that you're planning to work in or not. They have to be repaid. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And also, as we're talking about loans, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but any loan that you're trying to get that are federal loans, you must complete your FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. That is a catalyst to getting the ball rolling so that you can be considered for that type of funding. So you do need to complete your FAFSA if you would like to be considered for the federal loan programs that we talked about. Now, here's another type of loan that you may or may not know about, and these are private student loans. And so you might hear private educational loans or alternative loans. And then these are pretty much to help bridge the gap between the actual cost of your education and then the amount the government allows you to borrow in its programs. So, you're not working with the federal government, you're working with outside entity or private lender. And so there's no type of federal form that you need to complete. So lenders will tell you how you need to apply for their particular loan. So I also want to let you know that private loans or alternative loans and federal loans cannot be consolidated together. So just keep that in mind. When we're talking about the federal loan consolidation programs, you're not consolidating federal loans and private loans together. Now here's a state-funded private loan or alternative loan program. It's called the NC Assist Loan Program. So this does assist students in North Carolina and also maybe students who are outside of North Carolina who are planning to come to North Carolina schools. And so there's no application fee here. There's no origination fee or prepayment fees. And so, of course, the interest rate is relatively low. So you'll see what the interest rate is right here, 5.50. Or, if you're making your payments through auto draft, you get a 0.25% interest rate reduction, which makes it 5.25%. So there's no prepayment penalties for this particular loan. So if it's something that you need, of course, you can visit ncassist.org. So ncassist.org. And so my recommendation for you, even though we're talking about loans, I always like for students to find that gift aid, that free money first, and then let loans be the last thing that you consider. And then if you are going to borrow, you want to find out what you're eligible for in federal loans first. And then, if you still have unmet need, then you can continue to look at other options, such as the NC Assist loan program or other alternative loan programs. So here, I do want to talk to you a little bit about loan limits for dependent students. So of course, you'll see information broken up by grade level. And of course, if a student's a first-year undergraduate student for subsidized funds, they're eligible for $3,500. Remember, that's the need-based loan. And unsubsidized, you could possibly be eligible for additional $2,000. So that makes the annual loan limit as much as $5,500. But again, borrow responsibly. Don't borrow any more than you absolutely have to. So although you may be eligible for a certain amount, if you don't need that full amount, you may want to just accept exactly what you need, because whatever you accept, you're going to be responsible for repaying it under the terms of the agreement. And so for sake of time, I won't go through every level, but you can see, for a second year undergraduate student, the, annual loan amounts, and also for third and fourth, undergraduate students. And so you'll see that information. And then just make sure you're paying attention to the aggregate loan amounts. So, for undergraduate studies, there's a certain amount that you cannot borrow more than. So, of course, for the aggregate limit for undergraduate dependent students, $31,000 with no more than $23,000 in subsidized loans. So you want to make sure that you're being responsible, that you're being financially fit as it comes to loan debt as well. Now, there are also loan limits for independent students or dependent students whose parents are denied the PLUS loan. And remember, PLUS stands for Parent Loan for Undergraduate Student. So you can see here, we'll just use the first year undergraduate student as an example. So $3,500 subsidized, and then unsubsidized, you'll see that $6,000, which gives you an annual limit of $9,500. And then, of course, the chart will continue to share with you information about second year, third and fourth year, and also for graduate or professional studies. I'll just pause for a minute so you can look at that and you can see what those limits look like. And again, I'm going to say this many times during our time together, is don't borrow any more than you absolutely have to. And then again, just like we talked about, aggregate limits for, undergraduate students who are dependent, as we look at independent students, and students who are going to go to graduate school or professional school, there are also aggregate loan amounts or limits. So, keep that in mind as well. So here, let me just tell you the aggregate limit for undergraduate students. Of course, this would be $57,500 with no more than $23,000 in subsidized loans. And then the aggregate limit for a graduate or professional student, $138,500 with no more than $65,000 in subsidized loans. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. Now let's talk about the promissory note. We talked about it, just vaguely a few moments ago. But the promissory note, or we refer to it as an MPN, contains your rights and responsibilities. So you understand you're taking out the loan and you know what your responsibilities are, your obligations are regarding that loan. So it's a binding legal document that you sign. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. So you definitely want to make sure you're checking with your loan servicer if you have any questions about your MPN or your master promissory note. Now, to complete or check your MPN or your master promissory note, you'll go to studentaid.gov. So that's a great website, and hopefully you've been familiar with that. Used it for many different, for many things, because not only is it talking about loans, but it's a great website just to learn about just aid, period. So definitely want to make sure that you're aware of studentaid.gov. Now, what is a loan servicer? So basically, a loan servicer is a public or private entity that collects money and monitors or reports loan payments. So you'll definitely be notified by your loan servicer, once your loan is dispersed to your school. So they're going to communicate with you. So if you don't know who your loan servicer is, make sure that you find out that information. So you can definitely look back at some of the correspondence you've received. And, of course, definitely talk with your financial aid office if you have any questions about your loan servicer. Now, your loan servicer can transfer your loan. So let's just talk about that just a little bit. So your lender can transfer your loan to another lender. So if that ever happens, the original lender and the new holder of your loan must notify you in writing. So they're going to let you know that this has transpired. So that notification that you're going to receive is going to include lots of information. So it's going to tell you who your new lender is or your new loan holder is, name, address, telephone number. And also, I just want to make sure you understand your terms and conditions of your loan do remain the same. Now, again, we talked about when repayment begins. So for direct loans, we talked about that 6-month grace period that you have between the time you either graduate or you separate from the institution before you have to actually start repaying. So, of course, you want to make sure that you're at least half time so that you don't fall into repayment prematurely. So, make sure that you know about that. Now, your loan servicer is going to tell you about your first payment due date during your grace period. So, be on the lookout for that information. So, you're responsible for beginning repayment of your loan on time. Now, if you're running into any difficulties, make sure you're communicating with your loan servicer. So, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but make sure that you're constantly communicating and let them know if you run into any issues or problems. Now, we're going to spend the next part of our time just talking about repayment options. So there are lots of different repayment options. So we're going to go, we're going to go pretty fast with this, but just hold on. It's going to be fun. So we are going to talk about repayment plan options that are available. Of course, there is a default repayment plan. It's called standard repayment. So that's when your loan servicer is going to take how much you borrowed and they're going to divide those payments up equally over 10 years. Okay. So that's the default. So if you don't choose another type of payment plan, that's going to be the standard or the default one that you'll see on all your correspondence. So there's some other ones that you'll see listed on my screen, and we're going to spend some time there. And we're also going to talk about some income-driven repayment plans. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time here. So the standard repayment plan, we just talked about that briefly. So additional things I want you to know about it is that the minimum monthly payment is $50. So that's the smallest payment that you could have. Now, the more you borrow, the higher your payment could possibly be. So just want to make sure that you're aware of that. Now, this is the standard or the default, repayment plan. But there's some other ones that you might want to look at. There's also a graduated repayment option. So these payments are lower at first, and then they're going to increase, over time. So they're going to get a little bit larger. Usually that's every 2 years. So you usually pay more than the standard, 10-year, plan. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. But you have up to 10 years to repay it. Now, this is a payment plan that you have to ask for. So if you want graduated, if that's going to be the option that works best for you, you are going to have to let your loan servicer know that this is the plan that you want. Now, some other ones for you to consider, there's an extended repayment. So these payments may be fixed or graduated. So you have up to 25 years to repay. Now, this is something you need to understand. In order for you to ask for the extended repayment, you must have more than $30,000 in outstanding loan debt. So again, let me just say that again. You must have more than $30,000 in outstanding loan debt. And again, you usually pay more than the standard 10-year plan. So just keep that in mind. So of course, if you're stretching something out, of course, you're going to pay more interest over time. Now, remember, if you decide you want to pay something off early, there are no prepayment penalties. So you can always make a payment, more payments, or you can pay it off sooner if you choose to. Now, there are some income-based repayment plans out there. So you'll see this one, income-based repayment, IBR. So we use a lot of acronyms in the financial aid world. So payments will be either 10 or 15% of your discretionary income. So, but there'll never be more than you would have paid in the standard 10-year repayment plan. So never going to be more than that. Now, payments are, recalculated each year and are based upon your updated income, and they look at your family size. Now, here's something I want to point out to you. So let me go down to like the third bullet point. This is something that you need to make sure that you understand. So any outstanding balance on your loan will be forgiven after 20 or 25 years. So, just understand that, and it's going to be depending on when you received your first loan. So I just want to make sure. Now, again, for this option as well, you may pay more than the standard 10-year payment plan. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Now, here's another income one, income contingent repayment. I know it gets confusing a little bit. So we call this an ICR, so income contingent repayment. So your monthly payments will be the lesser of 20% of your discretionary income, or the amount you would pay on a repayment plan with a fixed payment over 12 years. So again, it's going to be adjusted according to your income. Again, payments are recalculated each year and based upon your income size, your income as well as your family size. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And with this one as well, if you have any remaining balance, it will be forgiven if you haven't repaid it in full after 25 years. And you may pay more than your standard 10-year payment plan for this one as well. Now, we have income sensitive repayment. So your monthly payment is based on an annual income, but your loan will be paid in full within 15 years. So usually pay more again than that standard 10-year repayment plan. Now, this is only available for the Federal Family Education Loan Program. So not, so this is different from direct lending. So just want to clarify that. So if you've just started participating in the loan program, more than likely you just have, the direct loans and not the Federal Family Education loans. Now, here's another plan. It's called PAYE. So PAYE for pay. So pay as you earn. Your monthly payments will be 10% of your discretionary income, but never more than you would have paid under that standard 10-year repayment plan that we've been talking about. You must have a high debt relative to your income to qualify. Now, again, you're going to hear some of these same things over and over again, where they're going to, recalculate payments based upon your income and your family size, and it's done each year. So, anytime that you hear me talk about these types of plans, pretty much it's going to be the same. But if you have, outstanding loan balance on your loan, it will be forgiven if it hasn't been repaid in full after 20 years. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. Now, there's one other thing I want to point out for pay. It says to qualify for this plan, you must be a new borrower on or after October 1, 2007. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And must have received a disbursement of a direct loan on or after October 1, 2011. So that's an extra little piece that's in there. So, you're usually going to pay more, again, than that standard 10-year plan. Now, I know that we just talked about pay, but then there's repay, all right? So this is the revised pay-as-you-earn repayment plan. So again, your monthly payments will be 10% of your discretionary income, and payments are going to be recalculated each year and based upon what? You guessed it, your family size as well as your income. And then again, if you have any outstanding balance on your loan, it will be forgiven if the loan hasn't been fully repaid in 20 years. Okay, so that's going to be for an undergraduate student, but if you have graduate loans, then they give you 25 years. So I just want to make sure that you're usually going to pay more than that standard 10-year payment plan that we've been talking about. Hope you guys are doing okay out there. I know it's a lot. It's a lot. So it takes a lot to make sure that you're financially fit. And we want to make sure that you're receiving all the information that you need to make informed decisions about, how to utilize your funds and also how to deal with loans. So federal loan consolidation, I promise we don't have too much more here. But when we talk about federal loan consolidation, so this is an extended repayment plan. So it's up to 30 years. So it's going to be based upon your loan balance. So if you consolidate, your loans, so instead of paying all these different loan servicers, you're consolidating them into one monthly payment. So of course, you're still going to have a fixed interest rate, so you don't have to worry about that. And so, but before you decide to do a loan consolidation, you need to really look at, some of the benefits, I guess you say, some of the benefits that you have under your current loan plan. Because sometimes when you can do a consolidation or you consolidate loans, you can lose some of your eligibility for certain types of deferments, forgiveness, cancellations, things of that nature. So make sure that you're asking questions. Your loan servicer, they want to make sure they're answering all your questions and putting you into the best plan to meet your needs. Now, we also have public service loan forgiveness. So just want to talk to you a little bit about that. So to qualify, you must be employed by a U.S. federal, state, local, or tribal government, or even a nonprofit organization. You have to work full-time for the organization or agency. So you have to have direct loans or consolidate other federal loans into a direct loan. And one of the things that you also want to understand is you have to make at least 120 qualifying payments. So you need to make sure you're aware of that. And then repay your loans under an income-driven repayment plan. So I want to make sure that you're aware of that. Now, here's a website link that you can definitely take advantage of. So, of course, If you need to learn a little bit more about public service loan forgiveness, definitely look at that. Of course, as you can see, it's still that studentaid.gov site, but of course, it's definitely pointing you to public service loan forgiveness. So you can also contact your lender or your loan servicer, contact your HR department if your place of employment is something that qualifies for this as well. So just some information for you here. Now, there's some other loan forgiveness options out there. So I'm not sure if anyone here has loans for education. So your educator, there is a teacher loan forgiveness program out there. So in case you're thinking about going to teaching, this might be something that's beneficial to you. So of course, you definitely have to have direct loans. And then your first loan has to be made on or after October 1, 1998. So of course, we're beyond that point. You have to teach in a qualifying low-income school for 5 consecutive years, and then you'll see 17.5 or 5,000 could be forgiven. And then there's another program. It's called the North Carolina Forgivable Education Loan for Service, or we refer to as FELS. And of course, this is an award that you have to make, a certain GPA. It's only for certain majors that are in education, allied health, nursing. There's some other medical professions at the doctoral level. So anyway, for this program, if you meet the eligibility requirements and you receive it, you have to agree to work in the state of North Carolina 1 year for every year you get the money. And we don't really care where you work in North Carolina. This is one of the ones that we administer. But of course, just want to make sure that it can be in any of the 100 counties. And it's a great program. So be sure that you definitely want to work in that capacity. So check it out, cfnc.org/FELS for more information. Now, I'm just going to pause for just a moment. Of course, you can go directly to our website to see all the different programs that qualify. But here, when I say allied health, this is giving you an idea of some of those programs. So medical technology, imaging, dental hygiene, just to give you some examples. Nursing, we need nurses at all levels. Education, you'll see some of the areas here that are critical needs areas. So, definitely go to the website and look at that information. And then, here are just a few others. I told you there were some programs also at the doctoral level. So as you continue your education and you want to get advanced degrees, you might want to look at some of the things that qualify. So definitely take a look at our website for that information as well. Now, there's some other possible options. So there are health career forgiveness programs. So definitely, if you plan to work for a hospital, you can definitely talk with them about that. National Guard or AmeriCorps programs. So definitely look into that. Now, I want to talk to you in a few moments that we have left about deferment, and I also want to talk to you a little bit about default, and then we'll be able to wrap up our time together. But as we're talking about loans, if you hear deferment, that's a time period where repayment is temporarily suspended. So a deferment can be granted for many reasons. So if you receive a loan and you enroll at least half time, you're in what we call an in-school deferment. There are graduate fellowships, rehabilitation programs. Could be that you might have a deferment or grant a deferment because you're unemployed, you've experienced some type of economic hardship, military service. So there are lots of things. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're not able to make payments, or you feel like you need your payments suspended, then of course you want to talk to your loan servicer and they can tell you what options are available. So if you don't qualify for a deferment, there may be some other things that they can do for you. So another option that's out there is called forbearance. So you are unable to make your scheduled payments, but you don't qualify for any deferments we just talked about. So what does forbearance do? Forbearance allows you to reduce the amount of your payments or temporarily stop payments. So most forbearances are discretionary. It's up to your loan servicer to decide to grant a forbearance. Now, this is a slide. It's not my favorite, but I've got to tell you, I've got to make sure you know about this information. So we're going to talk about delinquency and default. So this is when you fail to make your payment on time. So you are delinquent and meeting your obligation. So you really don't go into default until you fail to make at least You have failed to make your payment for 270 days. So if you fail to make your payments for 270 days, that's almost a whole calendar year, right? So you will be in default of your student loan. So there's some serious consequences that come if you default. So let's just talk about what happens if you do default. So I'm trying to tell you how to stay financially fit. We're talking about financial wellness. We're talking about all the things that you can do to prevent you from getting to this part. So I don't want you to go into default. But let me tell you what happens if you do default on your loan. It can damage your credit rating. And remember when we were talking about, credit cards and other things earlier, we were talking about, hey, things are reported to the credit bureaus every 30 days. Well, if you have a loan and once you go into repayment, it's, your servicer is reported to that credit bureau every 30 days. So we don't want it to damage your credit rating. But if you go into default, it damages your credit rating. You can be referred to a collection agency. Collection costs are added to your debt. Your wages can be garnished. Federal, state, or tax refunds, Social Security benefits can be withheld. Civil lawsuits can be filed against you. So that means you're responsible for legal fees and court costs, right? Loss of deferment or forbearance entitlements. So we just finished talking about how you can be considered for forbearance or for deferment. Loss of payment option flexibility. We've been talking about flexibility all afternoon. Loss of eligibility for further financial aid. That's a big one. So if you continue to go to school and you want to get money to help you pay for school, well, loss of eligibility for further financial aid. Okay, so you need to understand that. Suspension of professional license. So there's some serious consequences, but I hope that you've been paying attention to all the things that we've been talking about today so you don't get to this moment. Okay, so it takes, again, 270 days for you to be put in a default status. So what you need to do is to continuously talk to your loan servicer. So loan cancellation. How can loans be canceled? Well, you're dead. Okay, you're dead. You become totally or permanently disabled. Your school closes and you're unable to complete your program of study. Your loan was falsely certified. So this is a result of maybe identity theft. Your school falsely certified or fraudulently completed a loan application in your name without your approval. So these are the ways that your loans could be canceled. Now, again, if you're having trouble making your payments, contact your loan servicer. So I can't stress that enough. If you're having trouble, talk to your loan servicer. They're there to help you. They want to see you be successful financially. And they want to be able to help you any way they can, but they don't know how to help you if you're not communicating. So you may be able to reduce your monthly payments if you qualify for an alternative repayment schedule. You may be able to temporarily postpone your payments if you qualify for any of the deferments we talked about, or you may qualify for a forbearance. These are things that were put into place to help you. Now, some helpful tips. Now, keep your loan records organized. Keep track of your student loan records. You go to that studentaid.gov. We've talked about that several times. Know how much your loan payments will be. So your loan servicer will definitely be able to share information about that. They're going to send you that repayment schedule, or again, you can check studentaid.gov, same website. Remember to create a monthly budget. And then, of course, your direct loan servicer will offer you the standard repayment plan. Remember, that's taking all that you borrowed, so whatever your total amount that you borrowed, and a standard repayment is going to make those into equal payments for 10 years until that loan is paid off, unless you ask for a different repayment plan. Okay, all the other ones we talked about, you have to ask for them. They're not automatically granted. Now, here's some additional resources. So, of course, you'll see studentaid.gov again, CFNC.org is definitely a great resource to make sure that you're career and college ready, and then ncassist.org. So you can definitely also follow, us on our social media pages, and you get the latest and greatest information that we have available. So, of course, we want you to stay in the know. So for College Foundation, here are all of our social media handles: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, however you flow, what works best for you. And of course, if you want to follow me, Tequila Hall, I am your regional representative. So I'm on Facebook as well as Instagram, and my handle is simply Tequila at CFNC. So I want to see what questions you have for me. I know we're almost right at time, but I want to, just stop here and see what questions you have for me.